Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you joined us today.
All right, y'all, come on. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we are back in the studio.
Yes, so happy to be here. And honestly, we're recording on a day I just got back in town, and I'm just really glad to be with my honey in the studio again.
Look, we have been all over the place,
Yes,
traveling, but we wanted to invite you guys in for this special episode, which, you know, we're doing a little celebrating today.
Yes, I'm excited. I got a big old cheesy smile on my face because there's some important stuff going on in this house this time of year and day.
Look, we have talked about relationships and money, and we just want to invite you guys to come and celebrate with us as it is our anniversary.
Woohoo! It's our anniversary.
Yeah. Look, don't get us singing like this.
Listen, because I can't sing, for
right,
real.
We're better in conversation than we are in singing.
For real. Even though you think you could be in the choir.
Well, you know, I do have, that je ne sais quoi about me.
No, you didn't. Pull out the big word.
But we really want to just invite you guys in to come in and take this journey with us. We're going to look back and we're going to talk about the last 25 years.
Yes.
Wow, man, just thinking about that, I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's
a long time.
Quarter of a century. Like,
hold on. Don't start putting it in that context.
I mean,
that sounds like
it's.
It sounds crazy when you start talking about it like that.
It's a long time. That's 2.5 decades.
Wow.
I've been with you.
I feel ripe and spry and, young fella.
I've been with you longer than I was with my parents' husband.
I know. That's crazy.
Yeah. So
anyway, as I think back to that day, man, it was wild, I told you, I think about like the gravity of it all. Like, man, we were so young. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, what am I doing here? Like, this is for real. This is some serious stuff I'm getting myself into. Yeah. And looking at it now, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah. I feel like we were ready, but we didn't know what we were getting into. So we were young and we were innocent-minded. But I think that in some ways we were mature enough to know to take this very seriously. And we had good support around us. Our parents were in agreement that we get married, and my parents liked you and yours liked me. I think it was mutual in that our families were very supportive, and they had our back, and in that regard we had no drama, and so that was awesome. And I think that's a big part of, honestly, us lasting as long as we did, because we absolutely had some supportive family.
Yeah, I also think myself, I was an old soul, because I was the youngest, but I had a lot of responsibility at that time, because when we met, I was going to school full time, I was working full time, and I was on my grind. Mm-hmm. I was about my business. So I just was really taking life, seriously at that point. And so even being a young man, I think I had that old soul about me that I could be sober and approaching things and relationships and, just wanted to build something. And I knew that we had that potential.
Yeah.
And so I think as people are approaching relationships now, you don't hear about, well, maybe you do hear about a lot of young people getting married. But you hear
people
also,
are waiting. People are waiting nowadays.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking about is like people are getting into their careers, becoming established. And, when they do end up getting married, you got two households that are combining. So there's other complexities. And so for us to be able to do it at that time and now fast forward 25 years later and, still, be in a relationship where we're in love and in like and all of that. I think that's a big accomplishment. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we built everything together. Like we had nothing when we started out,
yep.
but we believed in each other and what was possible between the two of us, and we built it all together. There was no his stuff, her stuff. I mean, honestly, we had very little stuff. So it was like just be thankful for the stuff you was able to take
Look,
from the house,
I
you know?
remember like we had, my bed and bedroom set and
Yep.
my desk that I had put together, which I had bought and used while I was in college. Boy, we were making it work. But when you go back and you think and you reminisce about that time, what's the one memory that comes up for you
Oh,
that you remember from like the wedding day or
yeah. Well, honestly, the wedding day, here's what's a little unconventional. We got married in the morning. We got married at like 10 in the morning. So getting everybody there on time was a little bit of a chore. But we had a brunch wedding. eh,
buffet?
Buffet. We was saving money. Listen, we was young. We didn't have a lot. And our parents contributed, but there just wasn't a lot to choose from, honestly. We didn't have credit cards to be putting that stuff on. And so all we knew to do was figure out how to pay for it with cash. And but I remember specifically, we did have a little dance floor at our reception after people ate, and they put on Between the Sheets, and like that was hilarious because
Hey girl, ain't no mystery.
come on, husband.
At least far as I can see.
Hey, and so we
It's
we
my Isley Brothers
come on now.
rendition right there.
Come on now. And so I remember them putting that on. It was hilarious. And then you dipped me. So I was just slightly embarrassed because honestly, like this is in front of my parents and my family, and like, they putting on Between the Sheets. I'm like, listen, I ain't trying to have that conversation or let my parents think, listen, this is what you get married for. But I wasn't trying to have that
Like this
conversation.
grown folk right here.
I wasn't ready to act like a grown folk in front of my parents. How about that?
Right. Look, when I go back and I think about that day, I remember how, we just talked about how we were young, but we were really, I don't know, we were starting our financial journey like from the get go because, our parents, well, your mom, she helped contribute like to the reception. And, there wasn't a lot that, my people could do, but I was working literally two jobs at
Yeah.
that time. And so I was determined that when we pulled off in the limo, we wouldn't have any debt. And I remember how I was responsible for like the photos and I found this photographer and she told me her rate and I was like, whoa. It's like, I can't do that. That's that's a little high. And just, I don't know if it was just my personality or something. She was like, you know what? It's something about you. I was like, that's the Lord working on you. And she literally cut her price almost in half. And we still got a great photo package and all of that. And so I just remember like working to get deals and stuff for all the stuff that we needed. And I remember like my cousin was the best man and I was giving him money on the wedding day, like, hey, you got to go pay this person over there. Or, hey, you got to go do this. And so behind the scenes, we were still like paying vendors and stuff like that. Just, whatever the final payments were. But when we got in the limo and we drove off, I remember us giving each other a high five, like, woo, it's over and it's paid for.
Yeah.
And so we knew even then that starting out debt free was an important thing. And when we got married, and we had like, 150 people.
Yeah, we had a lot of people that came. We invited 200 and about 160 or so showed up. Yeah.
Right. And so we paid for it with cash 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's I think we're to be commended on
That's right.
on that.
Well, and I think we also managed how we made choices and stuff. Like I didn't have a big flamboyant dress and we were at a modest, golf course facility. You know what I mean? We and like I said, we had a buffet lunch. That those things contributed to it costing a little bit less. And we had a family member help us with flowers and things like that. And so we just had to be creative because our funds were limited. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the truth. And it played well because the first couple of years of our marriage, I mean, honestly, had we had more debt, that would have been stressful. But it's nice to know that the rings were paid for, the wedding was paid for, because a lot of people end up paying for that stuff for many years afterwards.
Look, I put that ring in layaway.
You
I
did.
was
You
making payments on that boy.
listen, and I'm thankful. How about that?
Look,
But how did it feel for you? Like what were you thinking? Do you remember what you were thinking when you were standing there waiting for me to come down the aisle? Was that a moment, or were there other moments during that day that made you just feel like, oh my gosh, this beautiful woman is gonna marry me?
I remember looking at the wedding photos, and there was a photo of me looking out the window, like in deep thought. I was like, "Boy, what you getting into? Where the exits? Like the magnitude, like."
Ooh-wee.
But yeah, nah, it's. I remember, my niece, she sang, and she was like 12 at that time, and she knew we were gonna be moving, and she started crying, and I was emotional, and then I saw you, I was like, wow, it's a big step, and it's a big commitment
Mm-hmm.
that we were making at that point, and so I don't know, it just looking back on it, it was all good, it was great times, and I know now a lot of people ask us the question, really, how did we, make it, and how have we made it this long? And so I started to always think about the couple of quick and easy things to tell them, because though some of it sounds cliche, I think it's the basis and the building blocks that we've stood on, and that people, as they even listen to this podcast, they can take some of those same principles and apply them to their relationship if they want to have longevity.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like one, being so much more committed to the idea that I got your back. I am for you. Um, and remembering that even when it's tough, you know what I mean? We remind ourselves of one band, one sound. We on the same team, Team Young, and those reminders help us to say it's us against the world. And that has really been helpful. It shifts the thought process against us, say, fighting against one another, but us just conquering the world together. And even though we don't always agree on everything, just knowing that we're on the same team and we are going in the same direction together, that commitment, that purpose, and that being determined to stay focused on that has been really helpful. So I feel like the commitment part is huge, and just level setting that we're for one another even when life gives us crazy things, that try and separate.
look, that's good advice right there. There's no need for me to recap that. You laid that out pretty well, and commitment has to be in there,
Mhm.
because we'll get to it. We'll talk about how people approach things today, but sometimes that commitment is lacking.
Mhm.
But I think another thing that has helped us last this long is really communication. And it sounds crazy to be like, commitment and communication, that's what you're talking about? Well, yes, that's what we're talking
It's
about.
simple and basic and necessary.
Yeah, you don't have to overcomplicate it, because if you get the basics right, the basics will help you. That's where you have, the foundation. And it's the basics that sometimes we bypass, trying to look for something more complex.
Mhm.
And communication is so important, because you have to know, like, not only that the person's heart is right and their intentions are pure, but you also got to be able to, share what's going on, share what you're thinking, share what you're feeling, and talk about that. Because in relationships, we all know there is so much that can be misinterpreted, so
Mhm.
much that can be left to the imagination if it's unspoken.
Mm-hmm.
And we always talk about how people formulate stories, and all it takes is one thing to happen, and you don't talk about it or don't express how you feel or how you interpreted something. Then something else happens, and you add to that story. And here you have this ongoing story in your head that you've never shared with your spouse or your partner, and they can't correct it or rectify it if you don't effectively communicate
Yeah.
and talk about it. And those two things really are just some of the basics
Yeah.
that really can help build a relationship.
You know, one of the things that you say a lot and that helps me to focus in, look you in the face, put my phone down, pay attention, you'll say, I'm just telling you how I feel. And I think that's a big deal for a guy to do. So if I minimize that or act like I'm not paying attention or don't give you the due respect in that moment to hear what you're saying out, um, then you probably won't tell me how you feel the next time.
Look, you've gotten the opposite of that
I
as
have.
well
I
when
have.
I just stonewall and I'm like, no, it's all good.
Yeah. And
No, I'm fine.
that cold shoulder is terrible, right? Like that's terrible. And so I think communication, you say that a lot. And I think for a guy too, communication sometimes that just doesn't come easy. And so I'm really thankful that that's something that it comes a bit easier for you. I think that's a part of, your love language. Spending quality time with you does involve communication. And communication is that act of listening, and it is paying attention, and it is also letting folks know that you hurt them. That is
Yeah.
huge.
And I think, fortunately for me in my corporate career, I have to do a lot of listening. I have to do a lot of interpreting of what people are saying and reading between the lines. And I need to get clear on things sometimes, from a work environment. But I think those skills have, helped me in our relationship because it causes me to get clarity. It causes me to provide clarity. So there's no miscommunication or misinterpretation. And all the fellas out there listening, it's something that you can benefit from. Stonewalling isn't gonna get you very far, as good open communication
Mm-hmm.
can.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that in the times when I've worked with couples and my coaching work, when I can tell that communication is lacking, I will easily say, I think you really need to spend your time and money with a counselor, a marriage counselor, because one, I'm not one. And two, if you don't have that foundation, working on your money is going to shake a lot of stuff up. So you need to have the tools and the resources to be able to communicate well so that you can talk about harder subjects where it concerns your dollars and cents and where you're going and getting out of debt and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, man, that's like cart and horse. We putting the cart before the horse because people want to focus on the money, but they don't want to focus on the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And man, money is tough
Yeah.
because you get very territorial and it's like this is mine, that's yours. But when you have set the relationship up from the front side, and one, you're committed to it, and two, you're open to communicate about what's going on, you're right. I believe it does help with that money piece of it because you can't make the money right if the relationship is wrong. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you say a lot, there's this quick quit culture. So fast to end it culture. And not just in marriage, but work and in other areas of other relationships that aren't just your marriage. But I just want you to speak into that because I feel like our culture today around being a couple honestly isn't super supportive, and we can buy into that, like the culture and TV and social media, like it can be hard out there in them streets. So I just want you to speak into that because I think it's a really good concept to wrap your mind around right now.
well, I believe that today that's kind of the mentality that people have. We talked about we reminisced a little bit and talked about some of the things that helped us last this long, and they're basic: commitment and communication. And when you talk about people today, it's like, the commitment, that's where the quick comes from. Is like, you know what, this not working for me, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's okay if it's just, you're in an early phase of relationship and you're in that discovery process and you realize that, okay, maybe this isn't the right person or the right thing. That's okay in my mind to, pull the eject and move on. But
When you see major red flags early on,
right.
feel free to quickly quit.
Right. And I think in that scenario it's cool. But when you have invested the time and effort and you're trying to explore, don't just pull the eject if you think there's something there and you just need to figure out how to, dig a little deeper, ask some better questions, ask some more serious questions, and really be committed to, understanding if this is the right thing for me, if this is the right thing for us, opposed to the quick to me is really about people having a lack of commitment, to endure because, we've said it to each other and we'll say it to you guys right here on the podcast. Like, look, this is it. We in it. We're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah.
No matter what comes up, we're going to have to find a way to work it out.
Yeah, you said if I start packing my bags.
Like, girl, where you going? Where we going?
Right. Listen though, I honestly got scared in that first week when we came back from our honeymoon, which we honeymooned in Jamaica, and that's a whole story in and of itself for another day. But when we got to our new home in Arizona and we were newlywed and we were figuring out what it looked like to live together, and we had an argument over 3 things.
I was like, Lord, what did you give me?
Listen, over 3 things.
I was like, this girl,
listen, and I want
is leaving these dishes in the sink.
3
What is
things:
wrong with her?
a cup, a spoon, and a bowl. And this dude goes off and walks out of our apartment, closes the door, and leaves me in the apartment like, I ain't taking this.
It's funny. It's funny how you bring this story up.
Literally.
I don't even remember
I remember
details
it
around
vividly, and I can still see that 1-bedroom apartment with no furniture in the living room and 3 dishes in the sink, as if it was a hot mess. And this dude leaves in the
You're making me sound like I'm crazy
the
or something.
sweltering heat. He's standing outside. I don't know where he was going, but he needed a minute because he was looking at me like, "Girl, if you don't do these dishes."
Look, people, there had to be more context to that story.
No, that was the entire story. Believe me, okay? Because the woman is always right, okay?
Look, girl, got them dishes though.
Listen, and you know what? That was telling. First of all, I was, reflecting back, and I'm sure like it didn't take 25 years to think about this, but reflecting back, like the fact that you were serious about a clean home, that's a good thing, right? And in my family, we did allow the dishes to pile up, right? And we would do them, but we didn't care about 3 things in the sink. We cared about 20 things in the sink.
Look, I remember, living with Mary, cleaning the kitchen was wash the dishes, clean the sink, wipe the counter, sweep the floor. It was like, you don't leave no dishes here. So I don't know. Maybe it was that training that I got early.
She did. She trained you well. And on the opposite end of that, for us, it was like, you do the dishes. All right, you good. We were not mopping the floor. We weren't wiping stuff down. It was just you just threw them in the dishwasher and let that joker do it. Right. So, I mean, and
we had 3 built-in dishwashers, me, my brother, and my sister.
And that's the difference. Right. And so those are the things that you end up having to work through and make sure that you are committed to understanding one another and then also communicating. This is how I was raised. And if you've not lived together, you just don't know.
And I think it goes to how you talk about your money, past, present, and future, because you got to look back into your past to see how you fundamentally were
Mm-hmm.
taught, and trained. And it goes for relationships as well.
Yeah.
So it can apply in that because you have to go back and see what it was that you were taught as a kid, what you saw with your parents or, whoever was raising you and what you picked up
Mm-hmm.
because that's going to lead to what you're going to do and how you're going to live your life in your present. And, how you live your present is going to determine how you live your future. So I think it's funny when you think about both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what's interesting is I looked up the statistic on how long marriages last, and it is really disheartening, disgusting, and a little bit frustrating to be honest. So the typical US, marriage actually ends in divorce in 8 years. So they basically get to the 7-year itch and then it's over. And that is sad. And I'm so thankful that we have honestly stayed together 3 times as long, but there's many reasons that people face challenges in their relationship. But I feel like that is something to be celebrated that we've lasted as long as we have and still like each other. Still, not that we, you know, th-
Yeah,
work.
things haven't been perfect,
Yeah, absolutely.
but we've worked through it. And I think with those stats, it talks about the three main categories are, incompatibility.
Mhm.
And that's part of that past,
Mhm.
past, present, future,
Mhm.
infidelity, and money issues. And so we
Mhm.
know that sex and money are the big drivers in relationships. And that
Mhm.
incompatibility probably leads to those other
Yeah.
two areas. And so I have a question for you. Thinking about the last 25 years and I consider that though it hasn't been perfect, it's been, perfect for us.
That's right.
And what is one thing that you would do differently if you
Mm.
had to go back? Like maybe it was you wouldn't have left those three dishes in the sink, but I don't know, what would you have done differently?
Well, I think it's interesting that you say that because I feel like looking back on that one time when we had that argument about dishes, I don't remember us having other real arguments about dishes themselves. That one stands out. I think that was a highlight for me to understand your past and how you were raised, and you to understand mine as well. Um, what I would probably do differently though is I would not take myself so seriously in the beginning. I feel like I definitely was, you know, I wish I was a little bit more open minded, not as closed minded. I wish that I had relaxed a little bit more in the beginning. I think I was uptight for a little bit. I feel like, we were raised in the church, and I'm just going to go here, but we were raised in a church, and I feel like there's not enough real talk about when you get married. Here's what it looks like. My parents divorced when I was 9 years old. And so I spent the next 23 years um without a dad in the home. And so I didn't know really what marriage looked like. And you didn't have a dad in the house as well. And so I think marriage counseling, premarital counseling is good, but I do feel like the church it can be very strict in how they, teach you about what marriage looks like and that kind of thing, or not enough. And I didn't have real life examples. And so it caused me to be just a little bit of pent up and a little bit, I mean, we were good friends and we really loved and cared for each other. But I think that because I was a little tight with the way that I behaved, I think that I didn't, it took me 10 years, I think, to relax, to be
Wow,
honest with
that's
you.
that's real talk right there.
Yeah.
And look, people take that advice in
Yeah.
because that's real talk. And I appreciate you sharing that because that's insightful. Like
Yeah.
I don't even know that you've ever said that to me. Here it is, 25 years later, and I'm still learning new
Yes.
stuff.
I feel like when I turned 30 is when I really felt like I can put my shoulders down and not hold them up against my ears, like what's gonna happen, and be nervous. And I felt like that's when I really began to relax. And I had 2 kids at that point. And so you're right, that's something I haven't actually shared, but I do reflect on the woman that I am today and how much more fun I probably could have been back in the day. And that's what I really am trying to instill in my girls, and be a bit more open, and not as, I wouldn't call myself a prude. I'm going to use that word because it gives you a little bit more of a visual, but I feel like I don't want that to be a stumbling block for them in future relationships. So that is definitely the thing that I would change.
Look, I appreciate your honesty and openness here. That's
Hey, let's be real on the For Better and
look,
Worth podcast, okay? I'm
look,
just giving. Listen, we've been in this thing 6 months, so I feel like we can be a little honest up in here.
look, people, you getting the raw, the
Not
real.
listen. I'm gonna ask you the question, honey. So what would you change? Let's be raw and real.
That was my question to you, but
Come on, come on.
man,
I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you did me too. So
man, geez, it's a good question. When I said I'm gonna ask this question, I was like, man, it's a good question, but I didn't think about my answer.
right, exactly,
What would
exactly.
I do differently? Man, I feel like I almost want to press pause and come back, but
No, we can. Here's why. Here's why. Because when we started talking about, we always prep for our conversations, and one really great thing that you said that we need to talk about is relationship hacks. And I think that while I'm giving you a moment to consider what you would do differently 25 years ago or early in our relationship, I want to talk about some relationship hacks. Like, and
well, before we get to the hacks,
uh-oh.
I'm gonna jump in here.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I gave you a little time. I gave you a little time.
yeah, I had to get my thoughts together for a second. You know, it's not all. This is impromptu, people.
That's right. That's right.
And so, going back, I think I would have taken more financial risks.
Hmm.
We have been very, very calculated and very strategic in how we moved and what we've done. And, I say we kind of played it on the safe side in a lot of ways. And I think, money and relationships go hand in hand. And I just think I would have taken a few more risks. It's easy to look back in retrospect and decide, well, man, I could have done this differently. I know from a career perspective, we've talked about it before, I would have, taken some chances to go overseas and do overseas assignments, to take the family with us and, not wait till later to be open to that, but really try and lean into it earlier. And I think that could have just given our family and relationship a whole different dynamic and experience if I had leaned into being open to like overseas assignments just to, get a broader world view and perspective. And financially, sometimes if you take more risks, you get bigger rewards. And so we could have gotten some of our goals accomplished faster, like getting out of debt or, building, wealth and changing our family tree, which we talk about a lot. And I don't have any regrets at all. But if I was going to do something differently, I might have just leaned into the riskier side of things and just looked at what it was, not just been haphazard or callous, but still been calculated, but been willing to try some of those things that maybe at that time in life I was a little uncomfortable doing because I was like, well, I got a wife, I got some kids now, I got to kind of play it safe. And sometimes when you play it so safe, you miss out on some opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I think about it like that because I'm always thinking about it from the perspective of, and, I know both people can be providers in a relationship and contributors, but I've always had that mentality of trying to provide for my family and do all that I can. And that's something I think I would have just leaned into a little bit more.
Yeah, we're definitely conservative people where it concerns our money. And I think that you said that before, that you would have taken advantage of some overseas assignments if given the opportunity and to do it all over again. So that's certainly in alignment. I think that now it's hard to fathom being out of the States for a long time, or taking on some of that stuff. We do have the freedom, but I
Yeah, we're
think,
at a different phase in life now
yeah,
too. So,
yeah, yeah. So,
but let's get to these relationship hacks because people need to
yes.
know.
Yes. So, I I love our one relationship hack that I don't even think we started this from the very beginning, but
We started a long time ago
it's
though.
been a while. I mean, it's been 25 years, so honestly, a long time ago could be 15 years ago. But
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, this is a good one. We reintroduce ourselves. And so if you're in a sticky, heated conversation, or you're uncomfortable, or somebody says something wrong, and
Hi, I'm Chris.
hi, I'm Erica. And then it's just ridiculous. It's like I've known you for 27 years now. And to reintroduce myself just seems, counterintuitive. But I don't even know how we came up with it, but I do know that it makes us laugh because it's just
Right.
ridiculous.
So hack number one is find a reset,
Yeah.
and whatever that is for you, we reintroduce ourselves, but find whatever it is going to take the sting out of the moment and maybe ingest some ridiculous humor and allows you to say, okay, what's really going on?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that leads us actually into hack number two. Share what's on your mind in the moment.
That's so hard to do, Chris. You know
I know it
that's
is.
the hardest thing to do, but
Because you think about,
mm,
I'm about to say the wrong thing or I'm about to blow up or this, but I know that we've had situations where we may have had, we don't call them arguments, we call them skirmishes.
or dust ups.
Yeah, we had a dust up or we had a skirmish or a run in,
Yes, a run in.
and we've talked about it after the fact, like, well, man, if you had just said, what you were thinking, we could have diffused it, we could have laughed about it. And so a hack is really to just be intentional about saying what's on your mind in the moment and sharing that, because then it may just be a misinterpretation of what someone was saying, or you took it a certain way and they didn't mean it that way,
Right.
but it allows you to bring clarity to the situation in that moment.
Right, so that it doesn't fester and turn into something bigger. That's huge. The intention versus the impact. And a lot of times it lands differently.
Yep.
So, um and then the thing that I'll be honest, the thing I'm currently working on, how about that, is, really considering what your partner needs and wants in the moment, right? So we can easily go through life and be nice to each other. You love this person, you like this person, y'all spend a lot of time together, you do life together, you've got responsibilities. But I think the thing that can be really misguided is to consider what is important to them. And I'll just circle back. It is important for you to have a clean kitchen. And I think that
Even 25 years later.
yes. And so the truth is, I don't do the dishes for me. I do them for you. And I'm considering what is important to you. I remember one time, it was a while ago. We actually lived in Arizona. I was standing at the stove and I was wiping down the stove. And you said, "Girl, you ministering to me right now." And I was like, "I'm wiping the stove. This is attractive to you? Oh my gosh." Like, it's those little things. And just to consider a person. You went somewhere the other day and you told me you were there, and I texted you back. I was like, "Did you get something for me?" And you had bought something. You said that you had bought something for me, and I was like, he considered me. Like, you know the stuff I like, and you bought something for me when I wasn't present, and at the time, I hadn't asked for it, but
Look,
at
girl, I got your back.
exactly. And that's the point I'm making,
No,
right?
you weren't there to have the experience. I involved you and
Thank you.
engaged you in the
Thank
experience.
you. So, like, have each other's back. And I think those things, add love and, tokens into the love bank. So,
Absolutely. So we got to talk about make it worth it. And for me, we've shared a lot here. And I'm just going to say you have got to come up with some hacks that work for you. And you have got to have a good heart about it, and you really have to just, make sure that you're in it to win it. And, don't be part of that quick quit generation. So, find some relationship hacks that work for you, be committed to it, and you'll get the results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But how do you make it worth it?
Well, I think that I want to end on a little, heartfelt note. I think it's always worth it to encourage each other. And so I'm thankful. I'm just going to do this on the fly. And I'm going to give you a hot second to think of your response. But like, I'm really thankful that for the last 25 years, we've like made it work. We've made it worth it, both financially and personally. And I honestly am looking forward to the next 25 years. And I think that the next 25 years are going to be even better. And so I'm really pleased and honored and thankful to do life with you. And I'm really excited about what's in store in the future. So I'm glad to be on this journey with
That's
you.
that's so kind. You hear her. What you want? I gotta get some money out my pocket. What you need, girl?
Nah, baby, I just need you to put some love tokens into my bank. How about that?
Boom. There it is. There it is. I'm so glad that you shared that. And look, I am so excited about what these next 25 years can bring. Because while we have put the groundwork in, now we know kind of the formula that we can use moving forward. And I'm super excited on what the next 25 years will look like with you and how we are going to continue every day, every week, month, year to make it worth it. And I wouldn't choose to be anywhere else than right here, right now, doing what we're doing together. And so for me, it's definitely already been worth it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. And we're so glad that you are a part of our anniversary celebration. Woo,
It's
woo,
your
woo.
anniversary. Yeah.
Hey.
All right, people, we are out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up for our email on forbetterandworth.com.
Till next time, we're out of here.